Welcome to the dark side of the Force. Sorry, I had to do that. I have to do it. Let's just get straight to the point, shall we? Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Hell, it has its 20th anniversary this past week, or the last weekend, with its release of the film. And of course, this film is written and directed by George Lucas, and it stars mostly everyone from the previous two films. It's the story that, well, I think we all know this story. It's basically Anakin turning to the dark side and become Darth Vader, which we all know from the original trilogy. And this is the film that finally, this is the film that all Star Wars fans wanted to see from the very beginning since the Phantom Menace. This is the story that George Lucas wanted to tell, how Anakin becomes Darth Vader. This film is hyped up. I remember back in 2005, 20 fucking years ago, when this film came out, the hype was massive. From, I watched the trailer so many times, the TV spots, even the toys, the merchandise, the marketing for this film. It's Star Wars fever. It's just so hyped. It was just everything in this film. Like I said about the Phantom Menace, the hype is real. It was big. It was bombastic. It's just, the hype for it is amazing. I remember seeing this at a big tons of audience. Honestly, I loved it as a kid. I think it's one of my favorite in the Star Wars prequel era. And to the point, this is the best one in the prequels. Is it a masterpiece? Probably not, but it is much better than Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. I will say Attack of the Clones maybe in the next 2 years when it comes up to its 25th anniversary. I was going to do this after Phantom Menace, but I decided to, no, I'm going to leave for the anniversary time. I'm just going to jump into Revenge of the Sith. The best one in the prequel trilogy. I'll start off saying this, the opening scene with Anakin and Obi-Wan trying to rescue the Chancellor on top of the space of Coruscant, and all these Republic cruisers and the Separatist cruisers are there, space battle going on. That opening scene is Star Wars classic. This is classic Star Wars opening. And of course, you've got a good banter between Anakin and Obi-Wan, played by Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. And I'm just going to say that both of them interacting with one another is just amazing. I just love their bouncing off one another and see them have their one-off moments, especially how they're both interacting with one another. It's such a great moment. It's what Star Wars need. Some of these two characters bouncing off one another. So you know how their friendship grew over since from that movie alone, but get the idea. I will admit, throughout the entire movie, from this opening scene, it's just action scenes, set up the story, setting up what's to come for this overall story arc to go with Anakin, leading up to him to the dark side. Especially he has this fight encounter with Count Dooku, who is trying to have a battle again. Both Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting, and Obi-Wan gets knocked out. And of course, Count Dooku gets his head decapitated by Anakin by using two lightsabers. Of course, you do get Chancellor Palpatine's little him saying, "Do it!" Honestly, the moment he said that, I thought, oh, you throw a little Emperor Palpatine in there, Chancellor. I really like that. Of course, when the moment Anakin cut off Count Dooku's head off by targeting by the two lightsabers, you can actually hear a little blaster echoing sound as a wee, like a wee little noise. But not gonna lie, every time I see that scene, it's so echoing now. I can never unhear it again. Of course, when they're about to get off the ship and then they get taken to the hangar of the ship by their commander droid leader named General Grievous. And let's talk about General Grievous for a moment. General Grievous is basically another CGI character, but also let's just say it's a CGI droid, which George Lucas created to make him look cool. Now, don't get me wrong, I like General Grievous. I'm not the biggest fan of General Grievous. I liked him. I don't necessarily love him. He's he's cool. He's got the 4 lightsabers we'll get to in a moment. And of course, we do get some cool scenes here with him. And the dialogue, especially with that voice.
Fire and massive booster engines. A negotiator. General Kenobi, we are waiting for you. Of a massacre rescue. Jedi scum.
That's my terrible General Grievous impersonation there. That was terrible. I will admit, General Grievous is cool, but not the best villain. I think he's decent, even though he does get fleshed out. Just like Darth Maul, he does have his character fleshing out throughout the Clone Wars series. If you've seen the Clone Wars, you know what I'm talking about. Micro series, he also first appeared, but you do get him fleshing out a little bit more in the Clone Wars. But even though just because a Clone Wars series fixes a few things doesn't mean the prequel's that good, but that's a whole other thing, that's a whole other thing, that's a whole other thing. I will admit, just a little nitpick, some of the characters, the actors, especially Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, Ian McDiarmid, even Mace Windu when they're riding Coruscant, certain scenes, it's just all fake, it's CGI, which, again, I wish they could have built some sets, because some of it just doesn't look that convincing. It's just big giant video game blur or CGI blur fest for a while, which, even though the CGI is a lot better compared to the first two, because it's definitely improved upon, even 20 years later, it still holds up, but there's certain shots with certain sceneries, it just looks very CGI and fabricated. They could have built maybe a set or something or make it feel seamless, at the very least, make it a bit like Star Wars feel. Again, it's George Lucas, but he wants to do some CGI stuff, but again, no disrespect to George Lucas, but there were a couple of times that when the actor was given line deliveries, especially with Anakin and Padme, which I will admit, the relationship between Padme and Anakin is a bit better than episode 2, but there are a couple of times the dialogue they give, especially when Anakin says, "You are so beautiful because you're so in love." No, because I'm so in love with you. What? Who wrote that shit? Oh wait, George Lucas did. Yeah, I remembered. But of course, when Anakin rides back to Coruscant and reunites with Padme, and Padme tells him that she's pregnant, and of course, Anakin's a little bit hesitant at first, but he went, "Oh, that's wonderful." You do get some scenes where he has premonitions of Padme dying during childbirth, and Anakin's worried that there's a lot of tensions here, but I'll just turn right to Anakin Skywalker for a moment. Hayden Christensen is, honestly, when he's cast as Anakin in episode 2, Attack of the Clones, he has gotten so much backlash, so much hate ever since Attack of the Clones, and of course, maybe this movie alone, but in this movie, he's definitely a lot better because the dialogue and the character arc he's going through is definitely given more to work with, which I do applaud. And if you guys want to know my thoughts on Hayden Christensen's cast as Anakin, I actually liked him as Anakin. I think he's a good choice. I think because he's shown his performance from both shows from the Disney Plus series, Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which really good, very underrated in my opinion, and of course his cameo or makes a few appearances in the Ahsoka series, which we do get a chance to see his performance alone, which he does show he can play a good Anakin Skywalker. If he's given the right script and the direction he's given in, maybe he could have worked better. I wish we could have it in episode 2, even though he does show a little bit in episode 2. I'll save it for another time when we get to episode 2, but in episode 3, he definitely shines. He definitely shows his emotions, his character arc. He's struggling. He wants to, help Padme, don't want her to lose her, just like when he lost his mother. Of course, he's struggling with his confliction with the Jedi Council, because the Council didn't like the way he's acting, and of course, he wants to keep a Chancellor, but Anakin is against the idea of it. But what you know, Chancellor's trying to manipulate Anakin, which I do like the one scene though, when Anakin's at this concert or some, opera house or something, I don't know what it is, some electric show or something, I don't know. And I do like this scene here where Chancellor Palpatine tells Anakin about Darth Plagueis the Wise. Which I will admit, the scene and the set of the story and some kind of backstory, some exposition stuff, which even though it's not exposition, but I do really like to see it. And Ian McDiarmid as Chancellor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, Emperor Palpatine, whatever you want to call him, he just fucking kills it. Just like Ewan McGregor, which I'll get to in a moment with Obi-Wan, but he is basically another highlight. He's one of the best casting choice. Ever since he's been cast in Return of the Jedi, and of course him appearing in those 3 movies, and of course Rise of Skywalker. Whatever your feelings on Rise of Skywalker, you can't help but smile seeing Ian McDiarmid. He's just so fun to watch. He's just that actor who goes, "Oh, Ian McDiarmid, he's so cool. I like that guy." And he's such a legend, and his voice performance, and he gives that sinister but dark, twisted voice he has, especially that line delivery he gives. "Dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities men consider to be unnatural." Sorry, that's terrible. This is a bit of a little nitpick here. When Chancellor asked Anakin, "Did you know about the legend of Darth Plagueis the Wise?" Anakin never responds to that, but just says, "No, never heard of him." Which, Anakin could have been a little bit more suspicious. Maybe go like, "What? No, I never heard of him." I wish they could have given Anakin a little bit of a suspicion. Maybe, wait a minute, how does he know that stuff? They connect the dots, which, let's just say that the Council and the Jedi Temple are so oblivious that Chancellor Palpatine is the Emperor, the evil Sith Lord that they've been looking for. And I know some of you guys are going to say, but that's the point. They supposed to don't know that. 3 words for you guys. 3 fucking words. I don't care! Just because that's supposed to be meant to be happening, that doesn't equally mean good. Before I lose my shit there, let's go into the review, shall we? I will admit, the Jedi Council, they're just there. You know, Samuel Jackson's Mace Windu, he's alright. I like Samuel Jackson. He's decent enough as Mace Windu, but I will admit though, as a joke, my favourite scene where Mace gets thrown out the window, like throw out the window. Get it? Mace Windu, Mace gets thrown out the window. No? No, okay. And of course, we do have Yoda in the film who goes to Kashyyyk to help the Wookiees, and especially have Chewbacca in the film, which it's good to see Chewbacca in the film, and you do have some great moments with the characters, and he's not in the movie that much, but you do see him there for a good amount. I wish we could have a little bit more time with him, but you do see him, he's there, and of course that leads into Solo, a Star Wars story. Next time you see him, if you watch that in chronological order, or timeline order, if it's movie timeline or the complete timeline, because the animated shows and live action, including the video games like Jedi Survivor or Jedi Last Order, it's called. You know, one of those things you tie into it, which I need to get Star Wars timeline book. I need to get that at some point. Maybe later on in the time I'll save money up. But Kashyyyk is really nice. See all the other Wookiees, see all their characters and all that stuff. It does expand their Star Wars lore, not because it's, you know, compared to like the MCU or DC or Harry Potter, it expands upon, you know, the world building of Star Wars, seeing different planets, seeing different characters, you know, see certain aspects that we've never seen before. And of course, we do get Obi-Wan get sent to Utapau to hunt down General Grievous. And of course, Obi-Wan goes up to General Grievous and he's got these 4-armed lightsabers, which is pretty cool, not gonna lie. I thought it was a really cool scene. You see Obi-Wan fighting General Grievous, which I will admit is a cool scene, but there's a one little close-up when you see the eyebrow shot where going, oh, I don't think so. Which I will admit, that's a little bit a bit weird, that one, but at the same time, I can help but go, come on, Obi-Wan, that's a bit silly, don't do that. So he does that famous pose, which is basically Dragon Ball Z type of pose. Who does that? I'm like, come on, Obi-Wan, don't steal that pose, don't steal that pose, big guy, don't steal it. Of course, he does kill General Grievous, and of course, he says that famous line where we all say, so uncivilized. I'm going to quote that line every time someone dies or something happens. I'll go, so uncivilized. Of course, Anakin finds out the truth, or Chancellor reveals himself, yes, I am the Sith Lord that you're looking for. And his dialogue, he's chewing up the scenery, which I will admit, that scenery there where he goes, I know you do. I can feel your anger, and it gives you focus, makes you stronger. I will admit, it's just, you know, chewing up scenery. And of course, Mace Windu and Chancellor Palpatine had this fight, lightsaber duel. And of course, we do get that really weird, awkward moment. I know I'm nitpicking here most of the time, but I couldn't help but couldn't keep my straight face in this scene where Chancellor Palpatine or Ewan McGregor's lightsaber skill fights kind of lacking in certain areas, because he does this. Ewan McGregor, what are you doing? Because there's so many times the fight scenes between them is just, why? And of course, Anakin comes in, intervenes, and says, no, well, he came out alive, we're staying on trial, I need him, no! Cut off Mace Windu's hand. Emperor Palpatine force lines him, which, for our sight, just back up to a little moment for two. We do see when Mace Windu blocks the force line before he gets his hand chopped off. Basically, he blocks the lightsaber, the force line, and goes back to Chancellor in his face. And basically, when he gets his face all messed up, what he looks like, I wish we could have a moment where maybe Chancellor looking, maybe a broken glass floor or the window broken. Maybe he looks in the flesh and sees his face like, my face! My face! Can we see something like that? Because he's not showing any reaction. Maybe we could see him see how his face all messed up. That being said, I wish we could have that scene, maybe see how Palpatine's face looked a bit off. I will admit, I do like the scene where Hayden Christensen's finally embracing the dark side. He's embracing that Anakin stepping forward to the dark side of the Force, which I do like the scene there, but some of the dialogue is very iffy at times. But I will admit, Christian does show a little bit of, desperation, but then he does start to lean into the dark side, and then he's finally embracing it, which I do like that scene in details. Is because if you look past in the certain scenes from the film, you do ask him to see the tension, and it builds up, and you get to that scene there. It is good, but I wish the dialogue could have done a little better. Especially when he says, "What have I done? I'll do whatever you ask. Help me save Padme's life. I can't live without her." Nah, I don't know. That's just very questionable. And of course, we do see Anakin marching in with the clone troopers, marching into the Jedi Temple, and of course, the Order 66 scene, which I will say this though, the Order 66 scene and John Williams' score is sad, emotional. Even now watching the Clone Wars series, like the CGI, the animated one, which after that season finale, the last 4 episodes, and of course, in certain aspects, like point of views from the Mandalorian season 3 and the Book of Boba Fett with Gruger's point of view from the Order 66 scene, and of course, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series from the opening, if you've seen the show, you do add these details, and of course, Jedi Fallen Order, which I've seen the gameplay of it, where you do see Cal, I think that's the character's name, where he's getting trained in the public cruiser of his master, and of course, turn on him when Order 66 happens. It does kind of add in a few things here and there, which does add some kind of emotional flair, which every time I watch Revenge of that Order 66 scene, it hits differently. It just hits really different now after watching that scene. And of course, Obi-Wan escapes from Utapau from his clone troopers, and he heads back to ship. It's like a episode 4 ship from the episode 4 New Hope. And of course, he's joined by Yoda, and of course, Senator Bail Organa, played by Jimmy Smits. Jimmy Smits is another good actor. He's pretty solid. As far as this overall scene when he's in that ship, and I thought, we're in that ship from episode 4. Oh my god, this is the point we've seen. It's got real set. We're actually in the Star Wars set now. Finally, something magical is happening. And I think we're chance to talk about Obi-Wan, like Ewan McGregor. Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, he's great. I've really liked him. He's a really good actor, and he's very underrated. And I will say this, his Obi-Wan, especially in this film, and even Attack of the Clones, his performance got better. He's probably the only actor who really does try. He does give a shit. Dialogue's not good, or some of the stuff he doesn't work. He does makes this film watchable. I think he's a lot better than episode 1, because episode 1 he was just alright, but he doesn't get much to do as a character. But in this film, and even it's also episode 2, but I think episode 3, I wish we could have dived more into his character a little bit, because his arc is a bit unclear, but I wish we could have more of that. Even though Obi-Wan Kenobi series does dive into that, how he's no longer that Jedi, and how he lost his friend, his Padawan apprentice, Anakin, how he's just lost his pupil, his student, to be his best friend, or his kind of like his brother to him. And of course, you do get the scene where Obi-Wan and Yoda are in this Jedi temple and trying to figure out what's going on. It's not till that surveillance camera, which, even though Ewan McGregor's voice performance or his performance shows some kind of emotion or some kind of, response, but his response to seeing Anakin in the hologram, very questionable. He just stands there in the lack of denial, maybe. Not shocking if he just goes, "It can't be. It can't be." I wish you could see a little bit more of that, like certain stuff, like he says, "No, it can't be. It can't be. Anakin, can it be? No. I can't watch anymore." A little bit of emotion or something, because when he says, "I can't watch anymore," which, can you show a little bit more emotion, or maybe some denial? And of course, Obi-Wan has to find Anakin, because Obi-Wan's refused to do it because he wants to fight the Emperor, because he wants to go against him instead of killing Anakin. And of course, Yoda says, no, because kind of like saying, look, if Emperor Palpatine, if you go up against him, you're going to end up being killed straight away. I'll take care of him. You go find Anakin, deal with him. Obi-Wan goes to Padme's apartment where Anakin is, and of course, you do get this line delivery when Obi-Wan says, "I've seen in the security that Anakin slaughtered killing younglings." I will admit, I think Ewan McGregor's trying not to laugh, because he's covering his face like this. I think you see his cheeks there, it's like he's about to be able to laugh. So Padme goes out to find Anakin before Obi-Wan does, but it's not till Obi-Wan sneaks into the ship, and then of course, we get this scene of Padme giving her worst line delivery from Natalie Portman, which, again, I love Natalie Portman. She's a great actress, but she could have been a good Padme if the dialogue isn't bad and the line delivery she gives with the whole, Anakin, you're breaking my heart. Oh, Jesus Christ. Of course, we do get this scene with Anakin and Obi-Wan finally face each other. This is the moment we want to see Anakin and Obi-Wan going against each other, and even though we do get some dialogue, I know I'm nitpicking with the dialogue here, but I just can't help it. I can say this line, you turned her against me! You done that yourself!
I won't let her take it from me!
Well, mate. And of course, John Williams' score, and of course, Anakin Win fighting on Mustafar, which I will admit, the lightsaber fight is great, but the jumping off like platform to platform or walking on the side of the bars, and of course, swinging across the lightsabers, which it's just kind of a little bit over the top, and because just dance fight type of going on here. But you do go back and forth with Obi-Wan and Anakin fighting, and of course you go to Coruscant with Darth Sidious and Yoda fighting on Coruscant in the center Republic, meeting where the center, the meetings, all the politics stuff. I mean, just original stuff. And of course you see Darth Sidious throwing stuff at them, and Yoda falls to his ground, and of course escaping from that. Of course, we do get the final scene with Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting, where Obi-Wan says the famous line, "It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground! You underestimated my power! Don't try it!" Anakin jumps, and of course, Obi-Wan cut off his leg, 2 legs, basically, his legs, and another half of his arm gets cut off, falls to his death, and nearly falling to his death to the lava. Of course, Obi-Wan gets a heartbreaking moment where he shouts out, "You were the chosen one. You're sent to destroy the Sith, not join them." Because Ewan McGregor really sells out of that performance. I will admit, that shows a little bit of emotion. "You were my brother, Anakin. I love you." Of course, that's probably the most heartbreaking scene. And of course, Anakin gets burned. And of course, now we all know how his face looked like when he gets mass removed from Luke, which I will admit, that scene does add up. It says, so that's why he looks like that. Makes sense. So it does add in the lore of Star Wars, lore scenes, which I will admit, that was a really cool scene. Of course, when you fly to a certain base where Yoda and Senator Organa is, and of course, Obi-Wan took Padme in, and he's about to give birth, and the medical doctor said this. Now, this is a very questionable moment. It's basically where the doctor says, she's completely healthy, but the reason we can't explain, we are losing her. Like, she's dying from sadness. And that doesn't really make sense. When Padme dies after she gave birth to both Luke and Leia, and she dies straight after that, then that kind of retcons what Return of the Jedi said when Leia said that she remembers her mother when she was really young. She remembers the image of her being happy, and then she's really sad. Which, I wish we could have done that. Maybe Padme could have lived, and she can have Leia by her side while Luke stays on Tatooine, just to separate them. Which doesn't really add anything. Retcons what Return of the Jedi did. So it pretty much means it's kind of like a retcon there. Which, retcon's a common thing in certain movies like Star Wars or the MCU or DC or any particular IP franchise. There's going to be some retcons here and there to make it, doesn't make continuity sense. I will admit, Padme's death was sad, but I did find it a little bit questionable. I thought, well, Padme's death supposed to be not mentioned until Return of the Jedi, when Leia says that she died quite young, which, I don't know. Someone should have been there for George Lucas, tapping the shoulder and say, "George, don't do that. That's a stupid idea. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't add up to what came before." But again, like I said, I'm not hating on George Lucas. I do like the guy. I respect him for what he does. But as far as his directing style and some of the stuff he does, it's fine, but I wish we could have done a little bit more of that. And of course, we do get to see Anakin become Darth Vader with the suit on, and when that mask comes on, and then he put the helmet on, and he goes to that iconic breathing, I remember the whole audience was like crazy when you hear the oh, goosebumps. And of course, when you listen up to this gurney, and of course it goes, oh, da, da, and so much. I was applauding. When I saw Darth Vader on the big screen, I was smiling. I was just in that Oh, that was so good. Of course, we do get to see when he finds out that Padme is dead, that Anakin killed her. And of course, we get that famous no scene, which, again, I'm not trashing on George Lucas. I like the guy. He does have some good ideas, but his execution, not so much. Respect him, but the execution, no, could have done better. I'm nitpicking here, but I wish we could have had maybe Darth Vader maybe destroy a place kind of like Kylo Ren did, especially how Kylo Ren loses temper with his lights and goes, yeah, yeah, yeah. I wish Darth Vader could have done that, maybe kind of like we've seen before with him destroying the Force. Why not just do that? Of course, Charles Palpatine sitting there watching and goes, of course, you do get the scene where basically both Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine watching as they build the Death Star. And of course, you got Grand Moff Tarkin on the side. You do see him a bit close, well, not close up because it looks a bit CGI because how it's just motion capture effect. Even though Rogue One is did a little bit better, which I'll get to that next year for its 10-year anniversary for Rogue One, which I'll get to that another time. As far as this, though, I think I'd say it's acceptable, nonetheless. He does the score scene in Padme's funeral, and of course, Senator Organa basically sends take care of Leia and with his wife and be their grown child, and Obi-Wan sends Luke to Anakin's stepbrother, Owen, and of course, his girlfriend, Prue, basically getting into his aunt and uncle, basically. Owen gives to them, and a little bit, it was a nice touching moment, and this is all wraps up the story, because it bridges the gap between this trilogy and the original trilogy, and it just sets up, and the way it ends the binary sunset theme, where both Owen and Prue looking at the binary sunset, and there's that iconic moment when they're staring at it. It kind of reminds me of Luke staring at it, so it's kind of like the same scene. It's like poetry. It rhymes, as George Lucas says. It's like poetry. I will admit, the ending though was really touching. I can tear up a little bit because I knew how it all ends, and it did end the trilogy in a way it's reasonable and a good send off to lead up to the original trilogy. As my overall thoughts on Revenge of the Sith, I do like the film. I think it holds up pretty well for the most part. There are a couple of wonky dialogue, and some of the CGI does look a bit noticeable at times, but even though the CGI is a big improvement, and the acting is a little bit better, some wooden bits here and there, Hayden Christensen, Natalie Portman, but the majority of the acting is a lot better, it's a lot more conveyed, because there's a lot more stuff going on, because they give some characters to work with. And by that time, George Lucas finally sold his baby to Disney in 2012. Then we have the sequel trilogy, which I know George Lucas got through a lot of hate throughout this trilogy, and I don't necessarily blame him, because I think around the time after he made this movie, after the film's release, you can tell in his head, like, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to make any more because I decided to give up on it, because I went on doing something else. But now people want to know what his thoughts were, what his original ideas for the sequel trilogy is, but again, that's going to be hard for him to do. But thankfully, he has now got a lot more appreciation. Of course, Hayden Christensen has gained more appreciation, along with Ahmed Best and Jake Lloyd, who are now became a bit more appreciated. I'm hoping this will be the same thing for the sequel trilogy actors like Daisy Ridley, even, I can't remember the actress who plays Rose Tico, the actress who got bullied as well, and other actors I've kind of missing out as well, but you get the idea. They've been going through a lot of shit, and hopefully, they'll get the redemption they deserve. They'll get more appreciation over time. So hopefully, when The Force Awakens, which I am going to do The Force Awakens 10-year anniversary later this year, which I'm going to try and do that for you guys. If you want me to do that, I'll do it. That being said, though, I really do like Revenge of the Sith. Is it a perfect movie? No. Is it a masterpiece? No. But as a Star Wars film, this is the most entertaining, really enjoyable, and it definitely ended the prequel trilogy in a solid, decent note, and I will applaud that for sure. I'm going to give Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, a B+. Guys, comment down below and tell me, what do you think of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith? Do you love it? Do you like it? You think it's alright, or do you hate it? Whatever the case is, comment down below and tell me what you think. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and of course, may the 4th be with you. And of course, guys, until next time, see ya!